Yeah, let's start with this ABC News clip. So this is from 21 hours ago. It's Costco sues Trump administration over tariffs.
The retail giant's asking for a full refund if the U.S. Supreme Court strikes down President Trump's tariffs. The lawsuit is similar to other suits filed by companies challenging the legality of Trump's tariffs. The Supreme Court's expected to announce its ruling early next year. ABC's Elizabeth Schulze is here with more on all that. So, Elizabeth, what's Costco hoping to gain from this lawsuit?
Diane, what Costco wants is money that it's paying for those tariffs. The wholesale retailer says that it wants a full refund for the tariffs that it's paid under this act that's been imposed by President Trump. The International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEPA, has been what it's called. And of course, we heard arguments earlier this fall in the Supreme Court under whether President Trump has the authority legally to impose tariffs under that act. So what Costco is saying is it wants to get money back once that decision is made, which we, as you say, do expect early next year. But keep in mind, Costco is one of several retailers that has done this. Retailers are saying that the president does not have the authority to impose these tariffs, that it's Congress's job to put them in the first place. We don't know in this filing, Diana, exactly how much Costco has paid in tariffs, but you would imagine it's a pretty significant amount if they're suing, they're putting this lawsuit out there. We do know that the government has collected at least $90 billion in tariff revenues under this act so far this year, and that's money that
you know what's awesome about this? It means that the American consumers will have paid money for these tariffs at some point because they have been being passed on via one form or another to the American consumers who they were applicable for, either at the front end when paying for goods or on the back end because their jobs have been redundant or cut or just whatever livelihood they relied on that was impacted by the tariffs was just impacted by the tariffs, right? And all these companies are going to sue the Trump administration to get refunds, which he likely would have given them anyway because he loves big business, or he would have given them to the people who own these companies at the shareholder level via tax cuts in one form or another, right? And that money he was supposed to give to the people impacted most by the tariffs, like the consumers, where we were supposed to be getting $2,000 checks, and then also the farmers who voted for Trump, who were going to get some kind of bailout, some sort of $16 billion bailout. But it seems like no matter what happens, the money is just going to go to the rich people. Isn't that crazy? Isn't it crazy how that works? How at the end of all of this, the money went out of the pockets of the working class. And there doesn't seem to be any way that it will come back to them. It's just different ways for it to go to the uber wealthy, right? It's wild how our society works that way.
Would need to go back to companies, essentially try to figure out how to get that money back to companies that have paid them. The money is still being collected at this point, and Costco did say in this filing that is expected to make a payment to Customs and Border Protection later this month.
And Elizabeth, how is the Trump administration responding to this?
What the Trump administration is saying, Diane, is that this shows how necessary these tariffs are. They point to the revenue that's coming in from tariffs, and they say
even the Black
this
Power
is proof
salute.
That it's working to try to raise money for the federal government. And this is an argument. We've heard President Trump regularly talk about how much money tariffs are bringing in. He often does inflate those numbers, talking about trillions of dollars when really we're looking at closer to $100 billion at least so far this year. Continue to go up, especially with
the difference between 100 billion and trillions is is very significant. I love how they can't just say that he's lying. They have to pretend just by nature of there being any amount of revenue that whatever number he says is reasonable. It's no, at the very least, it's a 10 times, a tenfold embellishment, which is so far beyond the pale. It's not like it's not like it's 950 billion and he's saying it's a little over a trillion. It's 113-ish billion, they said last time we checked in on that. And he says it's 16 trillion. It's he gives some insane number.
A lot of those tariffs still in place. But the White House has stood firm, saying that the president does have the authority to impose those tariffs. They say they have a sound legal case here. Really what it's
they don't.
down to, Diane, is the decision by the Supreme Court.
That's the real thing.
All right, Elizabeth Schulze, thank you.
Well, it's all very insane. Let's see how a non-U.S. because U.S. media always tries to sane wash Trump because they don't want you to think that the U.S. media in the entire U.S. system of like electoral politics that like gives an oversized influence to like the uber wealthy who are also well connected with legacy media, that they delivered Trump to us, or they were at least part of what delivered Trump to us. And what Trump is so like, you know, brain dead and beyond the pale that we should condemn all of them for being complicit and, you know, enriching themselves in that process. So they do their best to make it seem like, okay, well, Trump is a little weird, but it's still like normal. Like it's not. Obviously, it's not. You don't need me to tell you it's not. But like let's see how CBC is covering this from the other side of the border, the northern border, our neighbors to the north. This is about the same story. This is Costco sues Trump administration seeking tariff refund from CBC News, which is Canadian broadcasting. You know, Canadian broadcasting kills it sometimes when it comes to like dissecting their, their Mexico, which is America. The U.S., I mean.
So to dive more into this lawsuit, I am joined now by Tim Meyer. He is a trade lawyer and professor of international business law at Duke University. It's good to have you on the show. Thank you.
Oh, happy to be here.
So Costco is seeking a full refund of all duties that as a result of Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs. How strong do you think their case is?
Well, you know, as you mentioned, their case is really going to turn on this a separate case that's already in front of the Supreme Court, a case called Learning Resources v. Trump. The Supreme Court heard argument in that case about a month ago. And the argument, I think most people think, went pretty well for the challengers to the tariffs, the plaintiffs. And so if the challengers win that suit, and we would expect a decision from the Supreme Court probably sometime early in the new year, if the challengers win in that case, Costco is going to have a very strong case. Basically, what they're going to do is they're just going to point to the Supreme Court's decision in that earlier case and sort of say, look, the Supreme Court has already said these tariffs are unlawful. You should therefore also say they are unlawful, and we're entitled to a refund. And then the case will really be much more about, how much did Costco pay? And are they entitled to a refund? Do they have the appropriate records, and have they done the appropriate administrative steps necessary to claim a refund?
Now, if that previous case does not go the way you're suggesting, does Costco then still have an opportunity or any case to be made, do you think?
So, if the government wins the Supreme Court case, Learning Resources, Costco is going to, I think, have more trouble. I think that the legality of the tariffs is likely to basically be decided one way or the other by that Supreme Court case. It's possible that the Supreme Court would rule for the government in that case, but still leave open individual challenges by companies like Costco. But more than likely, whatever the Supreme Court does in Learning Resources is going to determine the legality of the tariffs.
Okay. And so if that case is determined, if the tariffs are determined to be, I guess, illegal, do you think other major companies are going to follow suit, follow what Costco is doing here and seek damages?
So that's exactly what's going to happen. So Costco is essentially getting in line at the Court of International Trade, where they filed this lawsuit to have their court basically adjudicate their entitlement to a refund. A number of other smaller companies, Costco is, I think, the largest so far to file suit. But what we're likely to see is really a wave of lawsuits seeking billions of dollars in terms of refunds. There is an administrative process.
I will say this is also like a Black Friday ad for Costco. Costco filed this like lawsuit around the time of the holiday shopping season for like earned airtime, so that Costco is going to be on everyone's mind as the company like fighting Donald Trump's tariffs. It's going to seem like they're fighting for you. If you're only vaguely paying attention, it's going to seem like they're fighting for you, because it's going to be like Costco sues Trump administration over tariffs, but they're fighting to be first in line to get those tariffs back. to get that tariff money back from the government. I'm not trying to allege anything untoward. I'm just saying that if that's what they're doing, it's a masterful gambit. Of course, this is just going to cost the American government a lot of money in adjudicating all of this stuff, a lot of time, because this stuff is, like the law professor saying, seemingly very obviously illegal, which has never stopped the Trump administration or Trump himself from doing stuff in the past. It just makes you kind of wish that we had a system that didn't have to allow for 9 months of the president getting away with illegal things before anyone is able to do even anything to counter it that has a possibility of stopping him. Califani 321 says, so will companies reduce their prices to account for the increased association with the tariffs? No, they won't. Will companies lower their prices? Not enough to offset how much they've raised their prices.
Through which companies can seek from the government directly a refund if the Supreme Court were to uphold the lower court decision striking down the tariffs. But I think companies are increasingly uncertain that process, that administrative process, is going to play out in a timely fashion. There are certain deadlines associated with that process. The first deadline is a 314-day period from the date an import enters the United States. And so I think companies are really going to increasingly be filing lawsuits as we get into the new year to preserve their entitlement to a refund as those deadlines start to pass for the earliest tariffs that were paid under the president's IEEPA orders that were issued early in 2025.
I'm just thinking about all of these businesses that have been paying these tariffs and now, as you point out, doing the proper paperwork to make sure they're at the ready, I guess, in the event of this decision in the early new year, determining whether or not the tariffs are actually legal or not. I mean, what do you make of the argument that Donald Trump has made, citing international emergency economic powers when he went and imposed the global tariffs?
Sounds like bullshit.
Yeah, so that's the issue. Costco has presented that issue in the case, although, again, that's really the issue in learning resources. And learning resources the Supreme Court in the learning resources case is going to decide that question. Honestly, the president's argument is really sort of unprecedented. The International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which we call IEEPA, does not use the word tariff. It does not speak of tax. Tariffs are just taxes. It doesn't say anything about taxes or duties. And so it's really unlikely that Congress, our U.S. Congress, intended to delegate the power to impose tariffs when they passed IEEPA in 1977. No president since 1977 has ever claimed the authority to impose tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, and presidents regularly use that law for lots of different kinds of things, particularly things like economic sanctions against countries like Russia, for instance. So,
well, I mean, not to allege anything or immoral about the Trump administration, but from my uneducated perspective, it kind of just seemed like Trump wanted to do the tariffs and they justified it backwards using whatever they thought would give them justification. It's not as though they were looking at the IEEPA law and going oh, this gives us the power to do tariffs, so let's do that. Trump wanted to do tariffs, and then they went out to find whatever legal justification could be made, because presidents do that all the time. They do it to torture people. They do it to extraordinarily rendition or extrajudicially kill people. So there's a long history of things like that. He's making enemies of business, though, not of populations he's bombing in the global south. So that's what's also playing to his disadvantage here.
Particularly things like economic sanctions against countries like Russia, for instance. So the fact that no reference is made in the law to tariffs and the fact that no president has ever claimed this authority just makes it really unlikely, I think, that Congress intended to give the president the power under this law to do what President Trump has done here.
Tim Meyer, trade lawyer and professor of international business law at Duke University. Thank you so much for that.
Yep, thank you.
Do you think that family of Italians is going to talk about this? You know what I mean? They're on TikTok. They're related to that kid, the Rizzler, and they're always talking about going to Costco. I'm sorry if that's me recounting a meme to you, but I guess I just wonder if they're gonna the Costco guys, like the Costco guys, right? You think that they're big Trump people, like, and they're gonna be like torn apart by this particular thing, like, or are they gonna like, are they ride or die for Costco? They're apolitical. Well, I mean, this is like Costco now, though. The Costco guys are Zionists. Well, I mean, they're American, so it's likely that they were going to be that. I don't know a lot about that kind of world. I don't even know what like platform they're big on. And I'm glad, like, people can be like, oh, Brandon's a boomer. He doesn't know about like the Costco guys. They are on AEW, the wrestling, like the rest of the wrestling brand. That's wild.